The story begins in 1996 when a team of agents arrived at a hospital and took away several orphan children. Every child was marked with a special symbol, because they had been selected for a secret program that would turn them into perfect soldiers. These innocent kids were put through brutal training, where they were taught that weakness was never an option. They had to stay perfect at all times, obey every order without question, and never show any emotions. They were forced to watch animals fighting and people killing each other so that all fear of violence would disappear from their minds. They lived under constant surveillance and were not even allowed to leave their rooms. When the children turned 8 years old, their mental and tactical training began. Every day they sat in a room, solving difficult puzzles and complicated strategy challenges. By the time they reached 12, the training became even harsher. They had to run several miles every single day, while keeping their bodies in peak condition. One day, while they were running across a training field, one boy fell behind because he was exhausted. There was no place for weakness in the program. A truck drove straight toward him and crushed him to death without mercy. The remaining boys were not even allowed to react. They simply kept running in complete silence. As they grew older, they were trained to use firearms and taught to eliminate every target they saw without showing mercy. By the age of 17, these boys had become living weapons. A special tattoo on their faces officially marked their status. Among them, the finest soldier was Tom. By the year 2036, he had never failed a single mission. His body was covered in countless battle scars. He had fought across the world, and even on the moon alongside his elite squad, wiping out enemies wherever he went without hesitation. Tom even killed an innocent woman just to reach his objective. His mission always came first. He never cared about his fellow soldiers, and he had never experienced love or any normal human relationship. The commander leading this elite unit was a man named Church. He was extremely proud of his team's success. But everything changed when Colonel Morris arrived with an entirely new squad. He explained that these soldiers had been created inside laboratories, making them much stronger than ordinary humans. According to Morris, this meant his soldiers were far superior to Church's men, and the old program should be shut down. Church completely rejected the idea. He insisted that years of real combat experience could never be replaced. Morris then suggested a competition between both squads to prove once and for all who was truly better. Morris selected Ken to represent his side. As soon as the contest began, Ken immediately proved himself by showing far greater accuracy with firearms. He also lifted much heavier weights without getting tired. During the running test, Tom took the lead because Morris allowed him to start 20 minutes earlier. But once Ken began running, he still managed to catch Tom and overtake him. Church still refused to admit defeat, so he added another challenge. This time, Tom and Ken had to climb heavy metal chains. Once again, even after starting later, Ken climbed much faster. Church then decided to prove that real battlefield experience mattered more than physical ability. A fight was arranged while they were still hanging from the chains. Morris proudly claimed the contest should remain fair, so 3 men should fight against Ken alone. 2 more soldiers climbed up beside Tom, but it made no difference. Ken was so powerful that he killed both soldiers within moments and threw their bodies to the ground. Tom managed to survive a little longer and waited for the perfect opportunity before jumping at Ken. His attack struck Ken's face so hard that one of his eyes burst. Even then, Ken kept fighting and slammed Tom onto the pile of dead bodies below. Morris technically won the competition, but he still angrily yelled at Ken because the injury meant he was no longer perfect. Believing Tom had died, Church accepted the new squad. The experienced soldiers were spared, but they would never participate in combat again. Morris ordered that all the bodies be thrown away like garbage. A massive ship collected the waste and headed toward a planet called Arcadia, which was completely covered in trash. During the journey, Tom suddenly regained consciousness. For the first time in his life, he felt fear as he realized where he was. Moments later, the ship's cargo doors opened to dump the garbage. Tom desperately tried to save himself, but in the end, he was thrown onto the planet along with everything else. Luckily, he survived the enormous fall and began wandering across the wasteland. At first, all he could see was endless piles of garbage. After a while, he spotted several people wearing torn clothes moving around in the distance. Tom decided to follow them. But suddenly, a massive sandstorm swept through the area. He had no choice but to wait until it passed. Once the storm finally ended, Tom continued walking and eventually reached a graveyard. Judging by its condition, many people had already died on this planet. A little farther ahead, he discovered a settlement built from scrap metal and broken spaceship parts. As he quietly walked near a staircase, a powerful gust of wind knocked him down. A group of children stared at him, and he collapsed unconscious. Later, the people of the settlement argued over what should be done with Tom. No new person had arrived on the planet for years, so nobody knew whether he could be trusted. In the end, the village leader decided they would help him, but Max would keep a close watch on him. Meanwhile, Max's wife Sandra looked after Tom. The couple also had a young son named Nathan, who was extremely curious about Tom, although his parents never allowed him to get close. Once Tom recovered enough to leave his bed, he saw the family laughing and enjoying time together. He had no idea what he was feeling inside. Max showed him a crutch he had built especially for him, and Tom chose to remain peaceful for the time being. That evening, the family took Tom to the large dining hall where everyone ate together. The villagers stayed cautious because Tom ate far more than everyone else, hardly spoke at all, and the soldier's tattoo on his face made him look even more intimidating. When someone finally asked who he really was, Tom explained how he had been replaced after stronger soldiers were recruited. Hearing his story, the people began feeling sympathy for him. From then on, Tom spent most of his time helping Sandra and learning simple daily chores. During this time, Sandra explained the history of the settlement. She told him they had not always lived there. Everyone had been traveling together, aboard a ship when it crashed on Arcadia 3 years earlier. Since then, no rescue had ever arrived. Even so, Sandra had no regrets because nobody bothered them here. Elsewhere, Morris revealed that he had been monitoring Arcadia for quite some time. He wanted to build observation stations across the region and send his new soldiers on patrol. According to him, any refugee or miner found there should officially be considered an enemy. Church strongly disagreed with this decision. Back on Arcadia, Sandra was taking care of the garden and surprised Tom by teaching him how to plant a tiny seedling. Just then, a snake slithered toward them. Sandra immediately killed it and explained how dangerous they were. One of those snakes had once bitten Nathan, leaving him seriously ill. Although he eventually recovered, the venom had damaged him so badly that he could no longer speak. Sometime later, Tom joined the other men searching through piles of scrap for useful materials. Because of the dangerous weather, everyone tied themselves together with chains around their waists, so nobody would be swept away by the storms. Unfortunately, a powerful sandstorm suddenly hit the area. One of the men was lifted into the air and pulled toward an old machine. The others desperately pulled on the chain, but they simply were not strong enough to save him. Tom stepped in and grabbed the chain himself. His incredible strength alone managed to pull the man back to safety. During the struggle, someone accidentally dropped a weapon, which Tom picked up. But after thanking him, the men immediately asked for it back. At that moment, a ship flew overhead. Tom became curious, but he was told these garbage ships only dumped waste before leaving without ever meeting anyone. As time passed, Tom slowly adjusted to life in the settlement. He helped sort scrap alongside the men and worked with Sandra around the house. One evening, Tom became so distracted while looking at Sandra that he accidentally cut his finger. He did not even notice the pain until Sandra cleaned the wound for him. Curious, Sandra asked what life as a soldier had been like. But when Tom began talking about his past, she was deeply shocked by everything she heard. Sandra hugged him and gently assured him that everything would be all right. When Christmas arrived, the settlement held a huge celebration. Tom's new life seemed peaceful until fireworks suddenly exploded into the sky. He mistook them for gunfire, triggering terrifying memories from his brutal training. Frightened by his own reactions, Tom hid on a rooftop and watched the celebration from a distance. The following day, he built a makeshift punching bag and started pounding it to release his frustration. Instead, it brought back even more horrifying memories filled with death and destruction, including the moment he had been forced to kill a child. Just then, a man approached to give Tom a gift, but Tom was so trapped inside his memories that he saw only an enemy. He grabbed the man's throat, slammed him to the ground, and nearly threw him into a machine that would have killed him. Thankfully, Tom regained his senses just in time and realized everyone had witnessed what happened. Once again, the villagers became terrified of him, especially after he kept punching the bag until blood poured from his hands. That sight triggered another memory of him, brutally beating another young trainee, while his instructor reminded him never to show mercy. Sometime later, Tom woke up and found Nathan beside him. Nathan proudly showed that he had solved a puzzle. Suddenly, another snake appeared nearby. Tom tried teaching Nathan how to kill it, but Nathan froze with fear. Tom quickly jumped forward and caught the snake. Yet instead of killing it himself, he encouraged Nathan to try again. Before Nathan could react, Sandra and Max rushed over, killed the snake, and angrily scolded Tom for putting Nathan's life in danger. By now, the villagers had completely lost patience with him. They told him he would never truly belong there, and that he was becoming more dangerous every day. They ordered him to leave the settlement. Tom silently packed his belongings and walked away. But then something happened that even surprised him. For the first time in his life, tears rolled down his face. Shortly afterward, Sandra and Max were sleeping peacefully when a snake crawled onto their bed. Just as it was about to bite Max, Nathan appeared and bravely killed the snake exactly the way Tom had taught him. Max finally realized Tom had been right all along. He rushed outside searching for him and found him hiding among the piles of garbage. Max apologized for everything and invited Tom back. But at that exact moment, a ship carrying Morris's soldiers landed on the planet. Tom recognized it immediately and hurried away with Max. Soon, numerous vehicles and soldiers poured out of the ship, including Ken. The villagers sounded the alarm and prepared to defend themselves. The soldiers launched their attack, firing at anyone they saw. Explosions erupted everywhere, and Max was caught in one of the blasts. Tom dragged him to safety and tried to treat his wounds, but it was already too late. Thinking of his family, Max took his final breath. Meanwhile, Church learned about the assault on the settlement. Morris ordered his troops to kill everyone, even though they were civilians. Church immediately prepared his old soldiers for an emergency response. The village leader walked out, hoping to negotiate with the attackers, but she was shot dead on the spot. The villagers fought back to defend their homes, but their few weapons stood no chance against such a large force. Soon, the soldiers spread death and destruction throughout the settlement. They even brought flamethrowers to burn people alive in the cruelest possible way. Suddenly, Tom crashed through a rooftop and killed one of the flamethrower soldiers. He gathered weapons from the fallen bodies and went searching for another flamethrower soldier who was chasing Sandra and the children. Fortunately, Tom arrived just in time and destroyed him with a rocket launcher. When another soldier began firing through the walls, Tom ordered everyone to stay down before opening the door and blowing that soldier apart with another rocket. Afterward, Tom picked up the fallen soldier's communicator and sent back a growling noise just to see what would happen. Morris became uncertain about his next move, and Church advised him to pull his men back. Morris agreed. Once the soldiers retreated, the villagers focused on treating the wounded. When Tom told Sandra that Max had died, she completely broke down. Tom collected every weapon he could find, painted his face for camouflage, and prepared for revenge, sneaking toward the area where the ship had landed. Tom fired at a vehicle, creating instant chaos. Soldiers rushed out searching for him, while Tom hid in the darkness and attacked them one by one. He pushed one man off a rooftop, threw a snake onto another, hid underwater to stab one soldier, and surprised two more with gunfire. When additional soldiers arrived, Tom ignored their return fire and kept cutting them down. In reality, he had set up a dummy holding a weapon, controlling it from a distance using ropes. He had also planted explosives around the area. Detonating them all at once, he wiped out several soldiers in a single blast. Then a powerful sandstorm swept across the battlefield. Tom secured himself to an old machine, while the storm carried away the remaining soldiers. The survivors stayed inside their vehicles, so Tom leaped down from above onto one of them and immediately opened fire on everyone inside. He then opened the hatch of an armored vehicle and tossed explosives into it. But Ken was still inside his truck, continuing to destroy the settlement. Determined to stop him, Tom stole another truck and crashed directly into Ken's vehicle. Ken jumped out and quickly used medicine from his pack to treat his injuries. Tom had just started searching for Sandra and the children when Ken stepped in front of him. Another fierce battle erupted between them. They exchanged relentless attacks, using everything around them as weapons. For a moment, it seemed Ken had the upper hand. Then Tom noticed a weapon lying on the ground. Ken immediately rushed toward it, but that was exactly what Tom wanted. Tom struck him with a helicopter blade, leaving Ken badly wounded. He then punched him to the ground, grabbed his throat, and finally killed him for good. Moments later, Church's old army found Tom and the surviving villagers. They chose not to attack because they still respected their former commander. Meanwhile, Morris realized every one of his soldiers had been killed. He ordered Church to abandon the old soldiers and launch the ship. When Church refused, Morris shot him dead. The old squad immediately stormed the ship, captured Morris, and brought him before Tom. Seeing Tom, Morris became so terrified that he begged for mercy and even wet his pants. Morris and his advisors were then thrown out of the ship onto Arcadia, where a bomb exploded and killed them all. The ship safely lifted off, and only then was it revealed that all the surviving villagers were also aboard, heading toward a new place where they could finally begin again. In the final moments, Nathan asked Tom to pick him up. As Tom held him in his arms, he experienced genuine love for the very first time. That single beautiful moment finally filled his once colorless life with meaning. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.